here joining us on the Rich Eisen Show, fresh off of winning his 7th national championship as head coach in the collegiate ranks. Alabama head coach Nick Saban. How are you, Coach?
Doing great. How are you, Rich?
Better for talking to you. So let's jump into it. What do your days look like in mid-February after winning it all? What is a typical Nick Saban day like right now for you?
Well, we spend the first half of the day on football, really doing quality control type stuff. Based on our season, evaluate what we did on offense, defense, and special teams, and then we spend most of the afternoon on recruiting because we have to virtually recruit now, not being able to go on the road, players not being able to visit here. So, that's pretty much the two things that we're focusing on most. Here we'll start off-season program here in another week or so. So we'll start getting back together with our team. They're all lifting now, but the strength and conditioning coaches basically, handle most of that.
So your pro day is coming up March 23rd, just recently announced. Are you getting calls? Do you get calls now from NFL talent evaluators talking about your kids? Do you get them right now, Nick?
Not much. The closer we get to that day, the more and more people start to inquire about what's going on. So we're actually going to have 2 pro days this year. I just thought it would, since they have a limited amount of people that can come to their pro day this year because of the COVID situation, they can only have 3 people in each organization. I thought it would give them a little bit more flexibility as to our players wanted to have 2 days. So if they couldn't send the receiver coach to see Smitty on the 23rd, they could send him on the 30th. So we're actually having 2 days because of that, but the 23rd is the main one.
And so what would you say to an evaluator? You referred to Smitty, the Heisman Trophy winner, DeVonta Smith. What do you say to somebody who says he's too small for the NFL? What do you say to somebody when they ask about that sort of stuff, or maybe you hear these sorts of things? What do you say to that, Coach?
Well, I think in our league, you're playing against sort of the. It's not the NFL. I don't mean to infer that, but you're playing against a lot of big physical players. In 5 or 6 games that we played, you're playing against big physical players. And both playoff games, obviously, and the SEC championship game, and LSU and Georgia, and there's a lot of SEC teams that look similar to NFL teams. I'm only saying that because the size and speed factor that everybody tries to equate the small player to. This guy's been very durable here, and he makes plays against everybody, and he's hard to cover. And you can't. Production to me means a lot, more than sometimes people give it credit for. Certainly more than measurables. And even though Smitty will run fast and all that, to look at him and say he only weighs 170 pounds is a reason not to pick him. I would say to them, the ball weighs 13 ounces. How big do you have to be to carry it?
I love that. I've never heard that one before. Where'd you pick that one up? You just came up with that yourself, or did somebody else come up with that?
It's been around for a while.
I guess, I've only been around the NFL for 18 years. I love that one. That's fantastic. So how do you decide whose house you personally visit? How does that go about? Where you say, okay, I want this kid, and I'm going to go personally sit on the couch in whoever's house I'm invited to. How do you decide that?
We haven't been able to go sit on the couch for a little while now because of COVID, but we do an evaluation system here very similar to what we did when we were in the NFL and we got ready for the draft. So we're going to rank the players at every position, and obviously the guys that you feel are the best players at every position are the guys that you're going to have the biggest priority to go want to see, first. So that's basically, in a nutshell, how we do it. But I think evaluation is the most important thing, and we have an evaluation system just like we did for the draft. And sometimes we like players better than someone else, and sometimes they like players better than we do. But we're always going to try to prioritize the guys that we feel fit our criteria the best for every position.
Who's the guy, Coach, and wherever you've been collegiately, Who's the guy that you recruited, you thought, okay, I think this kid's got a lot of upside, and then the upside blew the roof off? Who's that one that you went, I guess, from either couch to podium with that kind of blew you away?
Look,
like that?
we've had so many good players here. I don't know how many first-round draft picks have we had. Most of these guys are 30-some, I think, in the 30s, and probably another 4 or 5 this year, maybe. Julio Jones was probably as dynamic a player, and I always have a special place in my heart for those guys that played back then, because they all came here when we weren't any good. We were new here, 6-6, not very good, and a lot of those guys in that first recruiting class, Marcel Darius, Mark Barron, a lot of those guys I kind of have a special place for, because they all came here when we weren't any good and really got the program going. But we've had so many great players here, it'd be hard to say one guy actually, blew the roof off, to use your term.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing, these guys that come here as high-profile players in high school, and they get a lot of hype now, which I'm happy for them to get it, and it's a lot of positive self-gratification for them. But just hate it when it creates an expectation, because they get a lot of hype that they're going to come in and make an immediate impact, and if it doesn't work out that way, they're frustrated. Because we want our players here to focus on, not the outcome necessarily, but what do I have to do to get the outcome that I want, and that's a mindset that I think is important in their development. And sometimes when players get frustrated, they can't stay focused on that.
A few more minutes left here with Nick Saban, head football coach, Alabama Crimson Tide, on the Rich Eisen Show. Would you be up for, would you agree to, would you be opposed to more college football playoff teams, more than just 4?
Rich, this is a historic question, I guess. But, way back when we decided to have 2 teams, pick the best 2 teams and let them play in a championship game, and everybody wanted to expand to 4 teams. It was my comment then that, if we expand to 4 teams and have a playoff, everything is going to be about the playoff. All the media interest, everything's going to be about the playoff, the shows they do all year. It's like who gets in the NCAA basketball tournament. That's what it's going to be. And all the other, bowl games and teams that had good seasons but didn't quite get there, the interest in what they do in the off season is going to be diminished, and that's exactly what's happened. So I just wonder sometimes if having a playoff and bowl games, and that was a unique thing about college football. A lot of players got a lot of positive self-gratification for having good seasons. They got to go to a bowl game. Their families, the program, everything, sort of got some positive self-gratification for what they were able to accomplish, even though they weren't maybe national championship caliber or playoff caliber. And now that's all been diminished a little bit. So you just wonder to yourself, can playoff and bowl games coexist? Or should we just have more teams in the playoff? I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I think that's the question that, people need to answer.
So, so many different questions I could have for you, and I know I only have a few minutes left with you, Nick Saban. How do you decide which players you can get on really hard and which not? One of my favorite stories I was told by Paul Tagliabue once upon a time is he was standing at 50-yard line with Bill Parcells in a practice for the Jets, and Parcells was going all sorts of crazy on players going through a goal line drill 50 yards down the field. And Tagliabue says, we're the same age. How do you see that far down the field to know who you're getting on, coach? And Parcells pulled a list out of his pocket, and he goes, I just made up a list of 10 guys I knew I was going to get on today. I'm on number 7. Stick around. I got 3 more to go.
Sounds like Parcells.
So I love that story. How do you decide that which kids you can coach hard or not, or you just go the same speed and they got to catch up to you? How do you decide that?
Well, first of all, I don't ever take a list on the field with the intentions of getting on somebody that particular day.
Okay, good.
But I think it's important to know the personality type of your player. We've had, I'm going to use obsessive-compulsive type guys that are, really perfectionists, really want to get everything right, really want to do it right. It's important for them to do it right. And I think when you get on those kind of guys, it's not probably a good outcome. I think those guys you just need to teach. They're already self-motivated. They already want to do well. So you need to teach them and, make sure they feel comfortable in knowing what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it and why it's important to do it that way. Other guys that maybe are not as motivated to be the best version of themselves and whatever it is, sometimes you need to get on those guys a little bit and get their attention and, challenge them in terms of, is their behavior actually helping them get to the goals that they want to accomplish, whether it's as a person, as a student, or as a player in college. But and I think sometimes when you make it about them, and because everybody's got to edit their behavior to accomplish the goals that they have, and I think when you allow them and let them know, maybe sometime in a harsh way, that what they're doing right now is not really helping them, going to help them accomplish the goals that they have, it kind of sinks in pretty quickly with them. But most of the time, I try to teach. I used to be one of those guys in the old days that got on players a lot, and I just, after a while, I wondered, how much good is this really doing?
When's the first time you met Bill Belichick, Nick Saban? When was that? First time?
When I was at the Naval Academy, Bill's dad, Steve, was my office mate in 1981. And Bill used to come home in the summer and see his parents, and I think we were both still in our 20s, in those days. And we used to get together and talk ball. And Terry and I, my wife, and Bill's parents were pretty good friends, and we'd get together and do things. And so that's when I first got to know him, and then we just kind of built a relationship, and we'd meet and talk ball after that, even when I was at Michigan State or Houston Oilers or he was at the Giants or whatever. And, in the NFL, you're not allowed to do that. So I remember one time we snuck to West Point. I was at Houston, and, Jerry Glanville said you can't talk to anybody else in the NFL, and Bill was at the Giants, and Parcells had a rule you couldn't do that. So we snuck up to West Point, stayed in a little hotel up there, and, talked ball all weekend. So I guess those two guys wouldn't get too mad at us now. That was a long time ago.
Yes, I think the statute of limitations has expired on that. So how often do you guys talk ball now? How often do you chat?
We probably don't talk as much football, but sometimes I'll have a question about something. I'll call him and ask him how he'd handle it or manage it. Sometimes it's program-oriented stuff. Sometimes it's football-oriented stuff. And, sometimes when he comes here and visits to see our players or comes to pro day or whatever, we'll sit around and talk about things. Some of them are philosophical and some of them are, football-related.
Last one for you, Coach Saban. Obviously, Urban Meyer's been there, done that. What advice would you have for him now that he's trying the NFL on for size for the first time?
Well, Urban's always been a great coach in any place that he's ever been, and I got a good Urban Meyer story for you.
Okay.
When I was a coach at Houston Oilers, and I got the University of Toledo head coaching job in the MAC. This would have been 89 or 90 or something, and I'm still coaching for the Oilers. I told him I'd finish the season, so I'm working every day till midnight or whatever. And Miss Terry's home taking all the calls. So she has Urban Meyer calls the house, and he was at Illinois State or somewhere. I can't even remember, but she talked to him, and I came home that night, and she said, I talked to this really interesting guy. Urban Meyer called, and he's at this, and she said, you should make sure you talk to him before you hire staff. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made because I never followed up. I never took her advice on that. And, he's had such a great, successful career. But I think he'll do great in the NFL. I think the key to it is you got to have a great staff, and you got to get people in the organization on the same page in the NFL so everybody's working together. And if you can do that, I know he's a good coach and a good motivator, and players respect him. He'll help the players get better, and they'll have success.
Is there any thought in your mind about maybe trying it one more time in the NFL, Nick Saban?
No. No. I just feel like, at this stage in my career, we've invested a lot in this program, and don't feel like going any place else and starting over would be something I'd want to do, because I feel like it's a new challenge every year here. Now, I feel like I took a new job this year. We have 5 coaches leave. We have players going out for the draft. So it's almost like starting all over and rebuilding the program every year. And I just kind of look at it that way. And so I don't really think of, well, I need to go someplace else to have a challenge. I got a challenge here all the time.
Coach, really appreciate the time. I could talk to you all day. I got Bruce Arians on in hour number 3, and he has some Bear Bryant roots. As you know, he just came off the podium, and I have an embarrassment of riches. I get to talk to champion head football coaches here on the show. I cherish it. So thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Tell Bruce I said hello, and congratulations, all right?
I will do that. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Rich.
You
See
bet.
you, buddy.
That's Nick Saban, Alabama head football coach. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.